Now, I have an author with me, as I usually have authors and the like. This is Dwayne Epstein, and he wrote The Dirty Dozen, the most iconic World War II film movie with Lee Marvin. And the reason why I kind of am like just thinking this through is because I really like Lee Marvin. And if you're my listener out there and you know who Lee Marvin is, white hair, think Chuck Norris and Delta Force, think The Dirty Dozen as he's the Major John Reisman, right? Isn't that right? Reisman. Yeah. So Dwayne, you've written books, The Killing of Generals, The Dirty Dozen, the best iconic movie. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Rad. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we've been trying to get each other locked on for a few days now, and I'm super excited to have finally got this all streamed together.
So am I.
So let me just kind of say it correctly. So you wrote Killing Generals, the making of The Dirty Dozen, the most iconic World War II movie of all time. Where do you get off saying it's the most iconic World War II movie? Tell me why.
Well, real quick answer. That was not my idea of a subtitle. That was my publisher. I didn't even know he was going to call it that. I kind of agree, not entirely agree. There are equally iconic movies. It's not the most. But the one thing we did agree on early on, the publisher and I, was in the title. I was thinking maybe calling it Men on a Mission, or I think he had suggested something like, what's the line Cassavetes said? You don't know Victor Franco? Something like that. But that was not anything we talked about. That was something we talked about after we immediately both came up with Killing Generals. It was amazing. We said it at the same time in a phone conversation. And then he mentioned to me some of the other ideas he had, but we both thought Killing Generals is perfect because it's one of the most famous lines in the movie. It's also the last line in the movie. And it also says in 2 words, volumes about what the theme of the movie is about. It's rather antisocial. It's anti-military. Some would say it's anti-war. I don't know if that's necessarily the case or not, but it's certainly about there are several major themes in the film, and one of them is that the film came out during the Vietnam War, which was growing more unpopular with every passing year. And by 1967, which I write about in the book, we were in the heat of it, the midst of it. And people were starting to not want to be involved in the war anymore, wanted us to pull out. There were more and more protests and demonstrations. And so there are parallels to what the film is about to what was going on in the country at the time. Director Robert Aldridge called it the perfect storm, in that we couldn't have planned to have this movie come out at the time things were societally going on. And as it turned out, a lot of young people liked the film for that message, draft age kids, and a lot of older people, the greatest generation. The war had only ended 16 years before. And so they loved the movie because it was a lot of what they felt about and saw in real life, even though they took a lot of, what's the word? They took a lot of freedom with the storyline. That would never happen in real life. 12 convicts being trained for a suicide mission.
We do have the French Foreign Legion, though, huh? That does exist.
Oh, by definition. That's what they do.
You know what I mean?
We just want you to fight for us. And it has happened, by the way, historically, but never in this country. We would never have that happen here. Matter of fact, it's going on right now in Russia. Mm-hmm. They opened up the Russian prisons and made, quote unquote, mercenaries. They're not mercenaries, they're prisoners, and trained them to fight against the Ukrainians. In fact, that guy that was killed in the airplane. The guy who trained them wound up being an enemy of Putin. And he was I think his name was Prigozhin. He was.
Yeah, he was. He was running that mercenary group, the Wagner group.
The Wagner, right.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
He was kind of like John Reisman, but a lot less ethical, mm-hmm. for lack of a better way to put it. And by the way, during World War II, the Nazis had done it themselves. Oh gosh, I wish I could remember the country. One of the Eastern European countries, I write about it in the book, that had opened up the prisons to fight the the partisans in, I think it was Romania. I'm not sure. And it was done by a German officer who had been convicted for, had a prison record himself. He had been a child molester. And they don't seem to really care, the Nazis. They'll do whatever.
Right. Well, look at exactly. So Lee Marvin, right? That's what we're really celebrating here is him as a United States Marine Corps veteran who fought during World War II, kind of had a call to service again as an actor to almost like, help the effort, put it out there. And so he's like, hey, I'm going to do a movie and we're going to show these guys give their last breath of possible air to America still. They may have done these heinous crimes that they're accused of, like Charles Bronson and boy, there were some others in there. Holy cow, there's so many people in that. It won like 4 Academy Awards, and it wasn't even supposed to win an Academy Award.
Well, it only won 1, but it was nominated for 4.
Oh, excuse me.
No, that's okay. And when I did my Lee Marvin book, Lee Marvin Point Blank, I got to interview a lot of great people who knew Lee really well, including his son, who has since passed away. But Christopher Marvin told me his father made a lot of military theme or war films. And Christopher said, I know why my father made those movies. He made them for the guys who didn't come back, that it was a matter of making a statement. And Lee Marvin never really made like I'm not putting him down per se, but he never made a kind of a John Wayne war movie. If you understand what that means.
Sure.
The way I'm phrasing it. He never made a real gung-ho, let's go get them, guys, let's get that hill, blah, blah, blah. There was always a much greater subtext to any time he wore a uniform in a film. And it was often about how, I'll give you an example. There's a rumor that still exists about what Lee Marvin felt about The Dirty Dozen. A lot of people think he did it just for the money, and it was a popcorn film, and he didn't really like it because he didn't believe it. That's just not true. I don't know how that got started, but it's an historical misinformation. In interview upon interview after the film came out, he didn't have to say this, but in interview upon interview, he would always say, I like this movie, and the reason I like it is because it doesn't necessarily tell the truth in that it's not very believable as a premise. But what the movie has to say about war, I believe in it and I like it. John Wayne was first offered the lead and he turned it down. And I love this story. He sent a memo to the producer, Ken Hyman, whom I interviewed, by the way. He's still alive. And John Wayne wrote in the memo, whoever wrote this piece of crap script, okay, is probably some sandal-wearing, long-haired hippie freak carrying a sign that says he doesn't want to fight in a war, that he really should be fighting himself, okay? Here's the thing. The script was written by a 66-year-old screenwriting Oscar-winning veteran, Nunnally Johnson. Now, when they offered it to Lee Marvin, he said yes right away. It's often been said, too, that one of the things John Wayne didn't like about it was the innocent killing of some of the people at the end of the film. The Nazis, yes, but also they were there with their concubines, women, whatever. And it's open to question exactly how innocent a woman is who hangs out with a Nazi. But that's another subject.
Guilty by association, dude. I mean, it happens all the time. We took out a whole wedding in Yemen just for one guy. Right. With a
Lee Marvin didn't have a problem with that. Lee Marvin actually said, look, war is hell. And let's be honest with each other. Innocent people die in war all the time. And he cited the bombing of Dresden, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. A lot of innocent people died. That happens in war. And that's one of the points in the film. Matter of fact, the way they die at the end was really kind of parallel. And Robert Aldrich did this on purpose to, the blowing up of the chateau at the end of the film. He considered it parallel to the use of napalm in Vietnam. And as well as the ovens during World War II in the concentration camps. It wasn't an accident, and it wasn't, did they mean this or did they mean that? It was clear what they meant. It was very symbolic. And like I said, Lee Marvin didn't have a problem with that, and he liked it. He also loved playing the character of John Reisman.
Yeah, he held it pretty well. You'd see him walking in the courtyard as he's like, looking at his Dirty Dozen, and he just kind of walked with a nice walk, and he really held it well. I enjoyed that movie. I grew up with it. I was born in the 70s. I'm 46. So it's been around, a lot of Lee Marvin has been in my life. I didn't realize it until looking up Lee Marvin, really, how much more Lee Marvin there was, and all the Delta forces, right?
The first one.
Well, he was like the main guy. He's like the guy that put them all. He's like, I need you all to do this, Chuck Norris. You need to go on this mission. Point blank, huh? You talk about that.
That was a book that took me 20 years to get published. And in the 20 years, I did a lot of research. The 20 years were a little kind of off and on because in between, both my parents got ill and I had to take care of them a little bit until they passed away. And the guy two people are most responsible for me being able to get that published. One was my agent, wonderful, wonderful human being who passed away a few years back named Mike Hammelberg. Mike Hammelberg believed in this project more than anybody other than myself. And he finally found a publisher, a gentleman by the name of Tim Schaffner of Schaffner Press out of Tucson, Arizona. And we had gotten rejections from pretty much every publisher there is. Now, this is just real quick aside. When the book came out and it became an ebook, it made number 4 on the New York Times bestsellers list. Rare thing for a film biography of a gentleman who had been gone since 1987. And because we had gotten turned down by everybody, Tim had gone to a conference of other independent publishers, and they all came up to him and went, wow, great job with the Lee Marvin book. Boy, I wish we would have published it. To which, I could say, you had your chance, man. You blew it.
Yeah, exactly.
A little, pat on the back there. And it did well. And I'm very proud of it. And it also won a couple of publishing awards, too. But I came to Killin Generals via my new agent, a gentleman by the name of Lee Sobel, who is as go-getter as you can get, man. You talk about a hustler. He's amazing. He contacted me, asking me if I need an agent. And I said, yeah, but, agents don't contact writers. Writers look for agents. And he said,
right.
Yeah. He goes, why are writers so cynical? We can work this out. So we started talking. Well, first I checked him out to make sure he was legit, and he was. Right. And then we started talking about a project. And he asked me, he said to me, I loved your Lee Marvin book. How would you like to write a book about one of Lee Marvin's films? I said, yeah, that would be great. And he suggested Point Blank, the John Borman film, which is what I subtitled my bio on. And I told him, you know what? I like that movie. I don't love it. You want to know my favorite Lee Marvin movie? That would be The Dirty Dozen. I've always loved that movie ever since I was a kid. And he said, tell you what, put together a proposal. I'll shop it around and we'll see what we can do. And I did, and he did, and it worked.
That's amazing. For a writer out there, I want them to hear that you just kept to it. You didn't stop. You said this is a 20-year in the making. So by the time you had put this all together in the beginning, 20 years had gone by, you were still trying to get it published, right?
Right. I came close a few times. There was a lady at Penguin, one of the editors there, who really, really wanted to do it. But you see, I don't know if most people know how these things are done, but they're done by conference. Once a week or once a month, everybody, in the editorial staff get together and they pitch ideas, throw out ideas, and they have to have a majority vote in order to get the okay to go with it. She didn't get it. And she was very frustrated. I was working another job. I was at a day job, working at I was the managing editor at a publisher for children's books, believe it or not. Anyway, she would contact me periodically when I was there, and she would say, if I don't get this book published, I'm going to cut my throat. And I said, Hillary, don't do that. That doesn't help anybody. And just keep plugging. And ultimately, it was at Penguin, I believe. They turned it down. And Mike Hammelberg knew that because he was the one who got her in touch with me. And Mike just said, keep plugging. We can do this. We just can't give up. And I didn't. And don't get me wrong. There were indeed times where I came close, where I was like, why am I spinning my wheels? Why am I wasting my time? I could be doing something else with my life. But Mike didn't give up and I didn't give up, and it came to pass. Funny thing is, there was a period there, like I said, when my parents were ill, where I didn't have any contact with Mike anymore. I mean, for a while, like 5-6 years, I think. And then when I got back in contact with him, first of all, I didn't even know if he was still alive.
Right. Things are changing. Right.
I'm sorry?
I said,
Yeah,
things change, you know?
absolutely. And when I got back in contact with him, I said, are you still running your agency? And he went, oh yeah, I'll never quit. I'm semi-retired. I'm not taking on any more new clients. But and then he goes, what do you got? And I said, let me revamp the Lee Marvin book, and you tell me what a proposal, and you tell me what you think. And he said, do it. And I did. And he liked it even more because in the interim, I was able to find out a lot more information. So
Sure.
we got
And
it
really
done.
just crack that egg open on Lee Marvin and just get more. And then you could just, just edit your book and just make it even more, Lee Marvin.